Good morning, everyone. We're back again. We're here on page 32 and we're reading the story of Abram and Lot. When Abram went to Canaan, his entire family came with him, including his nephew Lot. When their families grew too large to stay together, they had to separate, and when Lot got himself in trouble, God helped Abram to rescue Lot and his family. Abram and Lot separate. So Abram left Egypt and traveled north into the Negev, along with his wife and Lot and all that they owned. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negev, they continued traveling by stages toward Bethel, and they pitched their tents between Bethel and Ai. I really don't know how to pronounce that one, but I would say Ai, right? Where they had camped before. This was the same place where Abram had built the altar, and there he worshipped the Lord again. Lot, who was traveling with Abram, had also become very wealthy with flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle, and many tents. But the land could not support both Abram and Lot with all their flocks and herds living so close together. So disputes broke out between the herdsmen of Abram and Lot. At that time, Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land. Finally, Abram said to Lot, "Let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, we are close relatives. The whole countryside is open to you. Take your choice of any section of the land you want, and we will separate. If you want the land to the left, then I'll take the land on the right. If you prefer the land on the right, then I'll go to the left." Lot took a long look at the fertile plains of the Jordan Valley in the direction of Zoar. The whole area was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord or the beautiful land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot chose for himself the whole Jordan Valley to the east of them. He went there with his flocks and servants and parted company with his uncle Abram. So Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot moved his tents to a place near Sodom and settled among the cities of the plain. But the people of this area were extremely wicked and constantly sinned against the Lord. After Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abram, "Look, as far as you can see in every direction, north and south, east and west. I am giving all this land, as far as you can see, to you and your descendants as a permanent possession. And I will give you so many descendants that, like the dust of the earth, they cannot be counted. Go and walk through the land in every direction, for I am giving it to you." So Abram moved his camp to Hebron and settled near the oak grove belonging to Mamre. There he built another altar to the Lord. Abram rescues Lot. About this time, war broke out in the region. King Amraphel of Babylonia, King Arioch of Elasar, King Kedorlaomer of Elam, and King Tidal of Goim fought against King Bera of Sodom, King Bersha of Gomorrah, King Shinab of Admah, King Shemeba of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, also called Zoar. This second group of kings joined forces in Siddim Valley, that is the Valley of the Dead Sea. For 12 years, they had been subject to King Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year, they rebelled against him. 1 year later, Kedorlaomer and his allies arrived and defeated the Raphites at Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzites at Ham, the Emites at Shaveh Kiriathim, and the Horites at Mount Seir, as far as El Paran at the edge of the wilderness. Then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, now called Kadesh, and conquered all the territory of the Amalekites and also the Amorites living in Hazazon Tamar. Then the rebel kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela, also called Zoar, prepared for battle in the valley of the Dead Sea. They fought against King Kedorlaomer of Elam, King Tidal of Goyim, King Amraphel of Babylonia, and King Arioch of Elasar. 4 kings against 5. As it happened, the valley of the Dead Sea was filled with tar pits. And as the army of the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into the tar pits, while the rest escaped into the mountains. The victorious invaders then plundered Sodom and Gomorrah and headed for home, taking with them all the spoils of war and the food supplies. They also captured Lot, Abram's nephew, who lived in Sodom, and carried off everything he owned. But one of Lot's men escaped and reported everything to Abram the Hebrew, who was living near the oak grove belonging to Mamre the Amorite. Mamre and his relatives, Eshcol and Anna, were Abram's allies. When Abram heard that his nephew Lot had been captured, he mobilized the 318 trained men who had been born into his household. Then he pursued Kedorlaomer's army until he caught up with them at Dan. There he divided his men and attacked during the night. Kedorlaomer's army fled, but Abram chased them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. Abram recovered all the goods that had been taken, and he brought back his nephew Lot with his possessions and all the women and other captives. Melchizedek blesses Abram. After Abram returned from his victory over Kedorlaomer and all his allies, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is, the king's valley. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem and a priest of God Most High, brought Abram some bread and wine. Melchizedek blessed Abram with this blessing. Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has defeated your enemies for you. Then Abram gave Melchizedek a tenth of all the goods he had recovered. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give back my people who were captured, but you may keep for yourself all the goods you have recovered." Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I solemnly swear to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a single thread or sandal thong from what belongs to you. Otherwise, you might say, I am the one who made Abram rich. I will accept only what my young warriors have already eaten, and I request that you give a fair share of the goods to my allies, Anna, Eshcol, and Mamre." So back to the synopsis. In Abram's day, sheep and cattle owners could acquire great wealth. Abram's wealth not only included silver and gold, but also livestock. These animals were a valuable commodity used for food, clothing, tent material, and sacrifices. They were often traded for other goods and services. Abram was able to watch his wealth grow and multiply daily. Facing a potential conflict with his nephew Lot, Abram took the initiative in settling the dispute. He gave Lot first choice, even though Abram, being older, had the right to choose first. Abram also showed a willingness to risk being cheated. Abram's example shows us how to respond to difficult family situations. Take the initiative in resolving conflicts. Let others have first choice, even if that means not getting what we want, and put family peace above personal desires. Surrounded by hostile neighbors, the herdsmen of Abram and Lot should have pulled together. Instead, they let petty jealousy tear them apart. Similar situations exist today. Christians often bicker while Satan is at work all around them. Rivalries, arguments, and disagreements among believers can be destructive in three ways. 1. They damage goodwill, trust, and peace, the foundations of good human relationships. 2. They hamper progress toward important goals. 3. They make us self-centered rather than love-centered. Jesus understood how destructive arguments among brothers could be. In his prayer on the night he was betrayed and arrested, Jesus asked God that his followers be one. John 17:21. Lot's character is revealed by his choices. He took the best share of the land, even though it meant living near Sodom, a city known for its sin. He was greedy, wanting the best for himself without thinking about his uncle Abram's needs or what was fair. Life presents a series of choices. We too can choose the best while ignoring the needs and feelings of others. But this kind of choice, as Lot's life shows, leads to problems. When we stop making choices in God's direction, our only option is to make choices in the wrong direction. Good pasture and available water seemed like a wise choice to Lot at first, but he failed to recognize that wicked Sodom could provide temptation strong enough to destroy his family. Have you chosen to live or work in a Sodom? Even though you may be strong enough to resist the temptations, other members of your family may not. While God commands us to reach people in the Sodom near us, we must be careful not to become like the very people we are trying to reach. Who was Kedorlaomer and why was he important? In Abram's time, most cities had their own kings. Wars and rivalries among kings were common. A conquered city paid tribute to the victorious king. Nothing is known about Kedorlaomer except what we read in the Bible. But apparently he was quite powerful. 5 cities, including Sodom, had paid tribute to him for 12 years. These cities formed an alliance and rebelled by withholding tribute. Kedorlaomer reacted swiftly and reconquered them all. When he defeated Sodom, he captured Lot, his family, and his possessions. Abram, with only 318 men, chased Kedorlaomer's army and attacked him near Damascus. With God's help, he defeated them and recovered Lot, his family, and their possessions. Lot's greedy desire for the best of everything led him into sinful surroundings. His burning desire for possessions and success cost him his freedom and enjoyment. As a captive to Kedorlaomer, he faced torture, slavery, or death. In much the same way, we can be enticed into doing things or going places we shouldn't. The prosperity we long for is captivating. It can both entice us and enslave us if our motives are not in line with God's desires. These incidents portray 2 of Abram's characteristics. 1, he had courage that came from God. Facing a powerful foe, he attacked. 2, he was prepared. He had taken time to train his men for a potential conflict. We never know when we will be called upon to complete difficult tasks. Like Abram, we should prepare for those times and take courage from God when they come. When Abram learned that Lot was a captive, he immediately tried to rescue his nephew. it would have been easier and safer not to become involved. But with Lot in serious trouble, Abram acted at once. Sometimes we must get involved in a messy or painful situation in order to help others. We should be willing to act immediately when others need our help. Who was Melchizedek? He was obviously a God-fearing man, for his name means King of Righteousness, and King of Salem means King of Peace. He was a priest of God Most High. He recognized God as creator of heaven and earth. What else is known about him? 4 main theories have been suggested. 1. Melchizedek was a respected king of that region. Abram was simply showing him the respect he deserved. 2. The name Melchizedek may have been a standing title for all the kings of Salem. 3. Melchizedek was a type of Christ. Hebrews 7:3. A type is an Old Testament event or teaching that so closely resembles what Christ did that it illustrates a lesson about Christ. 4. Melchizedek was an appearance on earth of the pre-incarnate Christ in a temporary bodily form. Abram gave a tenth of the goods he recovered to Melchizedek. Even in some religions, it was traditional to give a tenth of one's earnings to the gods. Abram followed, accepted tradition. However, he refused to take any of the recovered goods from the king of Sodom. Even though his huge amount would significantly increase what he could have given to God, he chose to reject it for more important reasons. He didn't want the ungodly king of Sodom to say, "I am the one who made Abram rich." Instead, Abram wanted him to say, "God has made Abram rich." In this case, accepting the gifts would have focused everyone's attention on Abram or the king of Sodom rather than on God, the giver of victory. When people look at us, they need to see what God has accomplished in our lives. That's the end, but we have a box and a picture of Hebron here to read. Hebron is still standing today, about 25 miles southwest of Jerusalem. Abraham spent much of his life in this area. It was here that Abraham built an altar to the Lord after parting from Lot. And years later, he entertained 3 angels in his tent here and was told of the judgment soon to fall on Sodom and Gomorrah. Genesis 18. Sarah died in Hebron, and Abraham purchased the cave at Machpelah from Ephron the Hittite so that she would be buried in the land God had promised to give Abraham and his descendants. The building in the photograph is the traditional site of the cave at Mamre in Hebron, the burial location for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham trusted God's promise that this land would be given to him and his ancestors, and he took the bold step of purchasing a parcel of land to bury his wife here, rather than bringing her body back to earth. Abraham was fully confident that God would fulfill his promise, and he wasn't afraid to act. How can you demonstrate this kind of faith in God's promises in your life? That was the readings of the morning. Make sure to subscribe, like the video if you're watching on YouTube, follow us on Twitch. We live every morning, and see you all tomorrow. Bye.